Who's the weirdest person you've ever met? Why were they weird? Story 1. When I was 20, I used to work on a farm. One time, I forgot my cigarettes at home. So, asked this guy about my age if he could give me one of his. To be clear, this guy always seemed a bit strange, walking around whispering to himself. He said, "I don't have any on me right now, but I need to buy a pack anyway." So he bought a pack, gave me a cigarette, then he buried the pack in a field and ran over it with a tractor like at least 10 times. It took him almost 30 minutes. This was an old tractor. When I asked him why he did that, he said, "I forgot I quit smoking." A few weeks later, he was fired because the boss caught him a pumpkin. Story 2. In college, we knew a kid who painted his dorm window black except for 2 slots for binoculars and would spy on people in the courtyard below. He wore the same outfit daily. He looked like Jesus. Story 3. I knew a kid in middle school that would draw pictures with his all over the bathroom walls. They had to take off the front doors to the bathrooms and told parents kids were smoking. They told parents 7th graders were smoking because that was better than the truth. Last I heard, he had won a bunch of painting competitions and was actually quite brilliant at it. I guess he was just a tortured artist at heart. Edit for clarification, that was literally or had been colored to look that way. Story 4. As a 16-year-old exchange student in Japan, I was in a store browsing when a middle-aged Japanese man walked up to me, pointed at my face, and excitedly exclaimed, "Pimple, pimple," before walking away. Story 5. I can't be the only one who clicked this link hoping they didn't see a description of themselves. Weirdest I've ever met. Charlie, my HS, had an agriculture department, probably the norm for the Midwest, but as far as I know, my school was the only one in our city that had actual live animal rearing classes. Also, I'm in a major city on the West Coast. Charlie tried to fill his class schedule with AG classes. He always smelled like he just came from the barn. All he ever talked about were animals. High school kids being high school kids, there were lots of rumors about him. Saw out in the fields last night with a cow. Charlie was near my barn talking to my mare, etc. Year after graduation, there was a burp in the newspaper about a local man getting caught a horse. Took all of 2 seconds to confirm it was Charlie. Story 6. John was a guy I went to college with for a couple years before he transferred schools. He was a noted insomniac, sleeping only a couple hours every other night or so. Because of that, he had a lot more time to get into misadventures in the middle of the night. Campus police got to know him pretty well by the odd places they would find him. On rooftops, throwing nuts at people and making noises, hanging out in a tree limb 20 feet off the ground, making friends with the squirrels, or just wandering campus in a daze because he hadn't slept in a few days. He referred to my fraternity as Triangle Club. We had a Delta as one of the letters, and our president as King of the Triangles. John was a really friendly, happy dude, but he was on so many medications for ADD, anxiety, and other that he was a bit unpredictable, would sometimes be mid-conversation, and he would just run off in the other direction. Never knew what he was going to do next. He was never violent or dangerous, though, just a bit odd. Last I checked, he had transferred to another school and become very active in their Christian groups, which was odd because John was a staunch atheist when I knew him. Wherever he is, I hope he's doing well and has a good rooftop to call at people from. Story 7. Joe. In high school, Joe was a quiet kid, mostly kept to himself, and most people thought he was maybe a little slow. Rumor had it Joe watched his dad shoot and kill his mom when he was little, which is why he lived with his grandma. If it's true, then it might explain why he was so odd too. I should also mention that Joe had tics. He would frequently twitch and wink, which some people found rather off-putting, but it was completely out of his control. Joe had befriended the metal kids, and at our school, those same kids were our resident stoners. Joe was known to smoke a lot of weed at a mutual friend of ours' house. Then had walked clear across town to his grandma's house, which happened to be about 2 blocks over from my mom's house. One evening, a friend of mine who tried very hard to befriend Joe was with me at our mutual friend's house, the one where everyone smoked weed. She asked me if I could give Joe a ride home since I was driving us back to my house for a slumber party. I told her sure, and I want to ask if I'd like a ride. After much deliberation, Joe accepted on the condition I would stop at a gas station so he could buy cigarettes. I obliged on the trip home, and somehow he took 10 minutes to purchase them. I'd like to think he just went inside and had to wait in line, but knowing Joe, it's more likely he browsed for snacks and a pop before making his purchase. Once he returned to the car, I began driving toward his grandma's house once again, and Joe demanded that I stop the car in the middle of an empty road. Thinking he was feeling ill, I did park the car in the middle of the street. He threw open the door and ran back behind the car a little ways. What he returned with will haunt my dreams forever. Joe had found a dead cat, and he was planning on skinning it. I told him to get out of my car, but Joe refused. We ended up negotiating, and he rode with his arms out the window, holding this poor dead cat for about 4 blocks. Upon arriving at his grandma's house, he thanked me and hopped out with his dead cat. I wish that were the end of the story, but being Joe, it's not. About a week later, while at school, Joe showed up wearing the bones of the cat in the form of a necklace. He was in my biology class and excitedly explained to the teacher that he was trying to learn taxidermy at home and had found the dead cat, tried to prep the hide, but ended up tearing it on accident, and decided instead to boil the bones in order to make a cool necklace. He wore that necklace for a year, and even to our graduation. Story 8, the Archangel Michael. I was at a house party in York, England. My housemate had just returned from a Buddhist monastery up in Scotland, and he had brought a new friend back with him. When visiting the monastery, there was the option to sleep inside or to camp. My housemate had chosen the option to camp, and only one other person had also made this choice, the Archangel Michael. This guy carried a giant conch shell around his neck, 247, which he said gave him the power to walk through wooden doors, but only when no one else was around. He told me that the conch shell was a gift from God and represented the burden of being an angel given flesh. I guess he was pretty weird. Story 9, guy in my apartment building. I was waiting for AAA to unlock my car, standing in the entryway with him. Guy starts talking to me about how I must be working for the government, how he knows all this based on what the car headlights and taillights are telling him, how he knows who owns each car based on how they look. Told me about his past relationships, and they called him crazy. Story 10, it seemed like he had no concept of any kind of appropriate social interaction. In addition to not seeming to understand social cues, he was a compulsive liar. Among other things, his stories have included one being a black belt. 2, while at a circus, a tiger got loose and ran up into the crowd and slashed him across the chest. 3, while shooting a bow arrow, the arrow bounced off the tree he was aiming at and flew straight back at him, sticking into him. After those 3, I mostly stopped paying attention to anything he said. Story 11, Zion was quite the legend at our school. He was convinced he was born in the 60s, was about 410, had long hair, and walked around playing guitar no matter where he was. One day, he decided to legalize prostitution for people under the age of 18. He needed 10,000 signatures. He got one. It was from his mom. Story 12, me. I was mute for many years due to severe social anxiety. If anyone said so much as hello, I would be shaking, sweating, and nauseated for hours. I would mouth conversations to myself. I lived on fruit and was severely emaciated. I masturbated constantly. Even in public, I couldn't help it. I had an uncontrollable drive. I started wearing Halloween makeup every day because I became terrified of people seeing my bare face. I'm pretty normal now, thanks to medication. Still very horny. Story 13, in my first year of college, UK. Studying nursing, I was the top male in the year. Admitted, there's only one other male. There were 2 classes. He was in the other one. He believed with every fiber of his being that he was a wizard. He was an adult in his 20s. I had a few friends in his class who would tell me stories about him. Some highlights were that he was infatuated with a girl in the class and would talk openly about how he planned to swoon her, and even made love potions for her that he would try and get her to drink. He also told the class he would be missing the lessons after lunch one day because he had magical matters to attend to. Nobody asked what these were apparently. They just let it roll. As well as this, he refused to study some subjects like anatomy. Keep in mind, this is nursing. We are studying as the books lied. Oh, and he once challenged another student from a completely different course to a duel for some slight this guy had apparently done to the wizard. My friend thought it was something to do with the girl he was obsessed with. TLDR, a guy in my year group thought he was a wizard and it made me look good. Story 14, college seems to bring out the crazies from the woodwork. I was in with a mix of STEM and liberal arts kids. We had the guy that never bathed ever, to the point of needing to be removed from school until he took a bath and did some laundry. The girl that stood in the entryway to your bedroom at the dorms and just stared at you until you woke up. The one girl who thought every female character was deep if she had been raped. All her writing assignments featured mediocre story with a rape scene or woman would otherwise be a, but apparently she had depth because she was raped. Sometimes they committed suicide in the end. Every writing assignment managed to squeeze it in somehow. The guy that dressed like an anime girl with the cat ears and colorful accessories, very stereotypical looking weeboo. Actually, he was pretty chill and was always happy to help other classmates with homework assignments. Just an odd choice of fashion. There was a guy who thought he would be macho by punching a wall. He broke his arm. A bunch of social recluses that thought they were God's gift to their field because they got good grades. I don't think any of them had a job when they graduated. Story 15, I was homeless for a bit. And let me tell you, other homeless people are by far the weirdest ones out there. They're shunned from society, and usually for a good reason. I've met lots of people with disorders and whatnot, but I cannot explain this one guy. I don't remember his name. It's been a while, so let's call him Hobo. As it turns out, bum fights are real, very real. Lots of people come out to these things and bet money on them. Hobo was like the Mike Tyson of bum fights. I say Mike Tyson because I watched this guy try to bite someone's fingers off, but he would end up breaking a few teeth in the process and maiming the guy's hands. There was a lot of blood, yet I distinctly remember the guy's tethered fingers still barely being attached. Hobo also claimed to have killed a few guys in the bum fights. I've only seen a couple of fights though, I didn't go after the finger incident, but I did hang out with Hano from time to time, and can tell some more stories if this catches traction. Story 16. Our office shares a bathroom with a floor of businesses. It's a regular-looking men's room with urinal sink stalls, etc. There's this one weirdo from another company who seems to have a personal mission to break every unspoken bathroom etiquette. To urinate, he approaches the row and selects the urinal closest to you. Even if the other more appropriately positioned urinals are free too, greets you 3. If it's lunch, he places his microwave bowl of SpaghettiOs on top of his urinal 4. He then unzips and places a hand on each side of the urinal wall like a potty hug 5, pees a long time 6. Zips, takes his food, eats at the urinal while it flushes automatic 7. Well, I don't stick around long enough to see what he does with the sinks. Also, I walked in on him standing in front of the mirrors, watching himself eat a pear. Story 17. Knew a guy who was family friends with one of my high school buddies. Guy claimed to have frost resistance and to be able to walk faster than he or anyone else could run. Would let him come along to parties mostly out of pity, where he was always the first one to rock up and last to leave. He'd just get wasted and weird girls out, and usually vomit on himself before passing out. He turned up to a gig once near the coast in winter, basically Antarctic winds coming in from the ocean with just a t-shirt to prove his invulnerability to the cold. We had to put him in a car with a blanket after he went blue for fear that he was going to catch hypothermia. He also vomited in the car from alcohol poisoning. The last straw was when he tried to force his hand on a friend's face when she made the light joke that he must not be the greatest gamer of all time as he didn't have GTA 5, yet it hadn't been released at this time. Suffice to say, we don't see him anymore. Story 18. Me and my friends knew this guy who called Derek. Derek was different. One day, during a break at college, me and my friends were heading to McDonald's for some lunch when we saw Derek, so we decided to chat to him. After we started heading to one of my friend's house, and he followed us, we assumed he was heading elsewhere and was going the same direction, but he carried on following us until we go to my friend's house. He followed us in, commented on how it smelt weird, and then walked out again like nothing happened. Definitely a strange guy. Story 19. Stranger in a hotel hot tub. Gets in, throws phone in pool to show off his waterproof phone. Then goes on to tell life story. He has Asperger's, and he is still a virgin his love of video games and just about everything about his life. Nice enough, though. He traveled around the area and would put bikes together for big box stores. Story 20. Lana. Oh my gosh, Lana. She was my science partner in middle school, but had more classes with me. Lana was different. She would rub her crotch, then smell her hands, so much that the counselors had to get involved. She would say the weirdest things, then not talk for a week straight afterward. Then there was also Eduardo. Eduardo loved to stick pencils under people's butts as they were sitting down, leading them to be in excruciating pain. After the 3rd time of doing this, he got suspended, only to do it again. There was also Hugo. Hugo, I'm pretty sure, had a binge eating disorder. He would bring mass amounts of food to school only to have eaten it all by 3rd period. Then he would go to the cafeteria and go back for seconds. I can't forget the PE teacher either, Mr. Kagan. This guy was scary, really scary, ex-military, always looked like he was going to snap any second, would scream at any kid who slightly messed up. I'm pretty sure he was schizophrenic. You could hear him talking to himself from across the field when we would run laps. I don't miss that school at all. Story 21. Okay, to clarify first, I work and go to school in the same general area, and there's pretty much only one path to go, unless I want to add an extra 20 minutes to my time. Anyways, this old guy whose name I don't know lives right on the path I take, and has said some weird and creepy to me, but I'm not sure if he has Alzheimer or is just weird. Also, I'm 22, so I'm pretty sure he's not a pedophile unless he likes kids with beards. First time I was walking for an exam, and he kept yelling, hey you, hey over and over. It was like 6:30 a.m., so I was the only person out. Thinking something might be wrong, I walked over to him, and he was babbling on and on about how he was lost and scared, and he needed to know where I lived, which I wouldn't tell him. It was even more confusing because he was saying all this on the porch of a house. And I was like, are you lost, or is that your house? If it's not your house, you shouldn't be there. And he says, okay, let's just go inside and talk about it, and opens the door like it's a no big deal. I now realize he is not lost, and there's no problem, and tell him I don't have time for this and start to leave. He then yells, fine, don't help me, and goes into his house angrily. Very confusing. A few days later, I'm walking home from work, and he starts calling to me again, yelling, come inside, come inside. My dog, please, my dog. I'm like, do you even own a dog? He says, please just come, I need help, my dog. I reply again, more sternly, what is happening to your dog? Is it sick, injured? Again, no real response besides just come inside. Please, just come inside, doll. My dog come house, blah, blah, blah. I just shake my head and say, if you can't tell me what I can do to help him going home, he just slams the door angrily this time. Last time I ever interacted with him, I realized how to get him to give up. He kept yelling at me for my attention, as usual, and I just started bobbing my head like I was listening to music I was not. As due to an ear defect, I can't wear earbuds, and over-the-head headphones are annoying to carry around. Anyways, he keeps yelling at me and actually starts following me until he gets like a foot away, and I turn around, make a face like I heard something, shrug, and walk away like I didn't see anyone. For whatever reason, that really with him, and he left me alone ever since. Weird guy for sure. Story 22 currently in HS. There's this kid in 10th grade who always runs through the halls full tilt and always talks to himself about the strangest things. I've overheard him talking about eating brain tumors and how the aliens are going to come out of the Atlantic Ocean and kill everyone. Story 23, my friend Big T, is a pretty weird guy. I can't really think of anyone weirder. He's ex-military, so he hand paints his in with a brush his cars to look like they were used in MS. He spent time in Japan and decorates his backyard in a strange blend of Shinto, Wiccan, pagan, and Catholic religious icons and structures, while also feeling like a gypsy commune. Every inch of his house is decorated with either kitschy relics from the 70s and 80s, posters of pop music icons, occult symbols of different religions, and as many cat-related items as can be found. It seems chaotic and is, but he and his wife have an eye for making it work as a coherent decorating method. Big T will often change gears in a conversation, going from the calm voice of reason to a fever pitch if he fancies stirring up the discussion's kettle for seemingly no reason but his own desire. He raises chickens, which isn't too weird, but has been known to lay hay down in the kitchen so the chickens can come inside. He puts markers at the edge of his property that look strange and offensive to anyone who might stumble upon them, hoping people will get freaked out and run the other way. Think Blair, which kind of symbolic twig structures. I know, a high-functioning, mentally retarded person. She says the craziest, weirdest to me, and am never quite sure if it's true or not. According to her, I'm an Amish Mexican space alien serial killer. Story 24, his name is David. He works behind me. He is literally the most socially awkward person I have ever met. He talks to himself. He stays after his shift for an hour every day, just staring at his computer, constantly declaring out loud that he loves his job, always asking people if we think he's annoying and asking us not to report us for harassment after saying something totally normal to us. Drives me up a wall. Story 25, we had this guy in our high school named Greg, last name. He had wild, crazy blonde hair that he wore up and never bathed, but for some reason he didn't stink. He said it wasn't bad after the itching phase stopped. He wore the same clothes every day for 4 straight years. They were sewn together, pinned together, or for his left shoe, just held together with orange duct tape. He was a short, stocky guy, and I once told him that if I ever saw him in public and didn't know who he was already, I'd assume he'd grant me a wish or something. He just looked crazy supernatural. Nicest guy, too. He made everyone laugh. I don't think anyone hated him. He used to do tons of crazy jokes, and one time the English teacher asked him to read some part of a story. Happened to be an Irish tale, and he just busted out this incredibly amazing Irish accent out of nowhere. The entire class and the teacher were just amazed and begged him to read the whole thing. Never saw him after graduation, and he's the only guy I care to find out what happened to him, but part of me likes to think he's off doing some crazy thing and making people happy. Story 26, this girl who literally had a kill list at my school. Now, I went to fancy private school, so there were no kids like this. This girl would just sit in the corner and draw anime and pretend she had schizophrenia. Also, when she would go to a friend's house, she'd just pull up Bondage and casually watch it. She is actually the most cringe-worthy person I have ever met. Story 27, that would definitely have to be the guy who approached me and my group of friends at a Sonic one night a few years ago and offered to apply correction fluid to our hair free of charge. How generous of him. Story 28, there was a kid in my high school who I only ever heard speak twice, and each time he had a different accent. The first time was during a standardized test when they were giving us the detailed instructions on how to fill out the info at the top. When they told us to fill in the day's date, he asked, with a heavy British accent, this was in Colorado, do they want us to put the month or the day first? The second time I heard him speak was when I popped in on my astronomy teacher in between classes. We had just gotten back from spring break, and on our road trip to California, we just so happened to have passed through the very large array, and I wanted to show him the pictures I'd gotten. The British kid was in the room too, and when I told the teacher I'd seen the very large array, he said, this time with a normal American accent, don't you love the creative name scientists come up with for things? I never figured out what this kid's deal was other than that he seemed to like to switch between accents. Story 29, I was leaving a smoke shop one day when I was around 17 to 18 when I saw a guy approaching my truck. He asked for a ride right up the road, and since he was in a knee brace, I wasn't going to say no. He got in the car, and he told me it as his birthday, and he is 55, but he spent the previous year thinking he was 55, so it's like he has another year of his life back. We got to his destination. I wish him a happy birthday. And he got out of my truck. I never saw him again. Story 30, Ethan. Went to college with him. He definitely had some sort of mental issue going. He would just go up to random strangers and talk their face off forever. This could talk all day to a mirror. I would see him talking to girls at bars, and I would go interject in the conversation. Girls would be so pumped to get out of the conversation that it actually worked well for me and my buddies. We were kind of a team, even though he didn't realize it. I talked to him on Facebook occasionally and try to be nice. He called like a year ago, and I had to hang up the phone to end the talking. Story 31, Diana Ross. Such a high and mighty, and way above you, nasty snooty. What made her weird? She refused to walk on any surface that wasn't carpeted. We had to lay down a carpet in order for her to actually walk down the hallway to her dressing room. Story 32, I met a guy in school. Pretty weird, and always made jokes, even during the most inappropriate times. So he didn't really have any friends, and I decided to befriend him anyways. He often tried getting me to his house, but I was always way too busy with homework, job, sports. So we talked at lunch mostly. I introduced him to another group of friends, and he fit in okay. Anyways, fast forward to the end of the year, he had a class in which he had to make a folder to represent his year. Little did I know he had a shrine to me in it. Just photos of me and info too. I never felt as uneasy in my life when the teacher of his class told me. Honestly, I felt sick. Come to today, we still talk every now and then. But he moved to another school. He has calmed down a lot now. We were like 14, 15 at the time. I'm 17 now. Story 33, well, there's that guy at my former school who would yell at people for not being his friends. He also masturbated in the public living room once or twice. Dude sure loved his Pokemon, though. Story 34, my friend's roommate, Kevin. First time I met him was at karaoke one night. Was introduced and started having a polite conversation. He started getting really into a bunch of idealistic nonsense about saving the world and changing humanity. I guess he liked that I listened to him. So he said he could tell good people from bad people. The worst part was he would talk in such a hushed, low voice. So I would have to lean in to listen to him and keep asking him to repeat himself in order to come up with a response other than a head nod. It was shitty too, because we were right at the front of the karaoke crowd, and I kept wanting to watch and kept saying, hey, so, and so is up, or I love this song, and divert his attention. But he would just keep talking like we were in a quiet coffee shop. Skip forward a few weeks, my friend throws a house party. I'm having a great time, drinking, meeting new people, and I asked to pass out on the couch since I didn't want to drive home. I had a few quick exchanges with Kevin since it was the same low-volume, hushed, idealistic conversations as last time, and I was in no mood. As the party pettered out, I got stuck in conversation with him, and he kept hugging me. I blamed it on being drunk when I went to pass out. He came out of his room and plopped right down on top of me on the couch. I was like, hey, I only got room for one. You got your bed. Go sleep in it. He kept mumbling something like, should just take it. Needless to say, push him off of me and rushed out of there. As I rushed to put my shoes on and run to my car, he followed me out and yelled into the street to come back, you stupid. WTF, you're crazy. A month or so later, running him at the liquor store, he is with some girl, and they're behind me at the register. He recognizes me. So I politely ask if they have any plans for the evening. 20 minutes later, I get a message on Facebook saying I ruined that girl's surprise party. Didn't respond. Mostly try to avoid any party or hanging out that Kevin might be at for the next few weeks. End up at an after party at his house. Justify it as there's usually enough people in attendance that I can avoid him. Bring my new boyfriend with me, and he stops him at the door. Starts up through the RU. Why are you here? I'm kicking you out because you touched my dog. We keep walking, ignoring him. I'm at the bonfire, and he's standing across from me on the other side, just staring me down. He keeps whispering, let's have a talk, let's go for a walk, we need to talk. I keep trying to ignore him, move around the party constantly, and he keeps following me, saying we need to talk, in his hushed, creepy voice. Eventually leave. Thankfully, he has now moved to another city. Story 35, I've lived in San Francisco for most of my adult life, so I've seen some. You end up with a different appreciation of weird. I always remember this one office coworker I knew. She was a tiny, mousy little woman with one glass eye. There was an inexplicable spiritual good vibe that followed her everywhere. Everyone loved her. She had a tall, super hot boyfriend. Nobody ever said, what's he doing with her? They just loved him too. Best couple ever. Story 36, my math teacher in high school was often called Jesus behind his back. He was tall, had brown hair and a beard like typical pictures of Jesus do, and was very eccentric. It was rumored that he flirted with girls in his class. He used to weld as a hobby and ride his bike everywhere. One year, some old lady ran him over while he was riding his bike, and he was out of school for a few months. Anyway, I was in skip class sometimes. I hated not understanding the material, probably would if I'd gone to class. And even skipped the day of a test once. I never brought it up, but he knew. When he passed the test back, I was super nervous. He called me up to the front while the class had free time. He told me that he called my dad and told him I missed the test. But he was making me an offer. If I went to a tutor he recommended once a week, I could use the next test score to make up the score for the one I missed. The catch was if I told anyone, he'd act like he didn't know what I was talking about and fail me for that other test. He was still weird but that deal got me a B on the next test. The B replaced my 0 from the last test. Weirdest person ever. But looking back, he actually really helped me out. Wonder what he's up to now. Story 37, he may not have been the weirdest person I ever met, but it happened just last Saturday. So husband discovered a honey for sale sign nearby. So we went there by car. A man in his late 70s sits in front of his house, surrounded by a couple of cats. Really nice, cozy place. Cherry tree in the middle of his dirt yard. Some sheep across the street. Best place ever to buy some real, fresh honey. We had just left our car when he started ranting back in my days and so on. We greeted him, asked about the honey for sale. He asked which variety, creamy, forest, blossom. We were after some forest honey. He said he had only one jar left. Okay, we'll take it then. He invited me in. Hubby stayed at the car, calming down the kids who totally wanted to get out and conquer this little piece of paradise. He jostles me into his kitchen. There's a small cabinet filled with honey jars. I picked 2, and he starts ranting again. I hardly understand his broad Bavarian dialect. Something about the sheep across the street, water, and a bus driver. And suddenly he punches me in the shoulder like really hard. Hubby watches us from the outside. And suddenly I felt like I was in some kind of hostage situation. I don't get scared easily, but the only thing I could think about was get the fuck out of here, trying to blink signals to the hubby to come in. Old guy continues ranting about God knows what. I say, I just wanted to buy some natural honey because, I saw this video lately about honey mass production. It's disgusting. And he rants, all this bullshit about animal welfare. The bees don't like it if you take their honey, so you have to shoo them away. Sometimes they get smashed accidentally. What do you think? Back in the day we had pigs, all the nasty smell, but piglets need it warm and stinky. And how dare this bus driver say my sheep had no water left? Hits my shoulder again and pushes me in front of his window and shouts, can you see if my sheep have water? No, sir, I can't. Praying this is what he wanted to hear. But he gets even more angry. You can't see it. How will you know they don't have any? I'm pretty sure they have plenty of water, sir. Suddenly he pats my back and finally allows me to leave. We fled from his yard like he was an axe murderer. TL Dar bought some honey from some kind of psychopath. Story 38, there was a guy in my high school, Josh. He seemed like a really normal guy, had a good group of friends, was part of a few sports teams, and was in drama. One day, I was driving to go feed my grandmother's cats when I see a couple mural friends of Josh's and mine. They ended up flagging me down, telling me they had to show me something. We waited until we got to my grandmother's house around the block. Once inside, they proceeded to show me a notebook they found in his room. Inside, he had wrote out every girl's name in our high school that encompasses our grade and the ones above and below us. Beside each name, he had rated them from 1 to 10 and what acts he would do to them. Some pretty up was in that book. Story 39, I went to my brother's baseball game, and I was walking around with my little sister. We were walking back from a park. Then all of a sudden, I hear a lady yelling, hey, you wait up. She was chasing me. Then she said, I just had to tell you I love your hair. I had purple streaks. Then she was asking me questions like, you look like you would be a singer. You should be one. She was excited when I said I played an instrument. Then she said I was a valuable gift from God and that I was beautiful and amazing. Then she introduced herself, and I introduced myself. Then she left.